Yeah, hi Arjun, hi Dhanesh.
Hey, good afternoon.
Leave the background on.
I had to make sure all you guys were represented, yeah. So, good, yeah, good to have you guys on board. And hi Dhanesh, hi Arjun, and thanks for taking the time. And I know today is Ganpati Visarjan, but hope all of you guys are already back where you need to be so that you don't have to sort of deal with the commute back home.
I didn't leave.
You didn't leave? You're still in BKC?
No, I'm not going to BKC today.
You're not going to, oh, you didn't leave? Okay. Great. Okay, so let's get started, guys. So I think we've got a lot of people joining in. So I think we'll start with a quick round of introductions and a little bit of context setting. So firstly, welcome everybody. I think we've got a good audience also in place here. And so today's topic is around sort of focus around the health and wellness industry. And we've got with us two expert panelists, both of which who don't need an introduction. One is Arjun Vaidya from ex-Dr. DRV, Dr. Vaidya's, and now who runs his own venture fund. And then we've got Dhanesh Shah, who is the co-founder and CEO of Mosaic Wellness, one of the fastest growing health and wellness companies here. So I think maybe we can start with the round of introductions from each of you in terms of your background, your journey, and especially around health and wellness, just sort of experience there. That'll be great. Yeah. So Arjun, you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go first. So hi guys, my name is Arjun Vaidya. I'm Bombay born and raised, went to college in the US, came back to India in 2013, worked in finance and then quit my job to start Dr. Vaidya's. Took forward my family legacy of Ayurveda to create a new age Ayurvedic products brand. We were one of the first few people to use the power of digital to sell Ayurveda and health and wellness products, and built a reasonable sized business, 5,000 orders a day, 2 million transacting customers across 16,500 pin codes. Through the experience, actually, we saw a few things in relation to health and wellness, which I'm happy to talk about as well as we go along. But as you sort of think about supply chain operations, logistics, you have to also think about trust building when it comes to managing of your RTOs and sort of managing of your operational excellence, because in this space specifically, it's a space usually where consumers are ingesting products. What is said in the ad needs to be sort of actually what happens, else you will face some amount of pushback. We had a great experience increasing the accessibility of Ayurveda across India, and proudest thing for me is that we got to some very deep remote parts of India and increased the accessibility of health. I ran the business until April 21 and I sold it to RP Sanjeev Goenka Group and exited our position in the business, and I now run a VC fund investing in consumer, and obviously health and wellness is one of the spaces that we are keenly following and actively looking to invest in.
That's amazing, Arjun. And would it be fair to say that you sort of made Ayurveda sexy again?
We used to say initially when we started that we want to make Ayurveda cool, sexy, fun, and aspirational. Right. But that was a young me trying to build it. Eventually, we just made it new age.
So mission accomplished or not?
Yeah, I would say to some extent.
Great. Dhanesh?
Sure. Thanks, Ajay. So I've spent, unlike Arjun, actually, I've spent my past doing a very motley mix of different things. Mm-hmm. I started off 18 years ago in technology as an engineer working with Oracle. And then post some more studies, post my MBA, moved on to McKinsey. I was working with corporates in consumer and banking spaces in India and Singapore. Spent a lot of time doing that. I come from a Gujarati family, business family, felt the urge that I need to do something on my own, set up actually a business in the manufacturing space, wow. which went terribly. Not a great story. Talk about it. Wound it down in 1 year. Thankfully without losing way too much, but was fascinated with the whole experience and went into investing. I was into venture capital and private equity then for the next about 5 or 6 years with 8 roads, investing in various companies in healthcare and consumer domains. in India, which is where I actually ended up even meeting Arjun at that point when he was raising capital for Dr. Vaidya's at that point. And inspired by him and many others, I did the exact opposite of what Arjun did, which is moving from starting up a health and wellness business to selling it and then moving into investing, which is I went the other way around. I spent a lot of time on healthcare, really like the space. I think it's a mountain of opportunity in India. And after 6 years in investing, quit, and me and my co-founder Revant, we started Mosaic Wellness, which is now just about 3.5 to 4 years ago when we took that plunge. So yeah, that's what my background has been. What we do at Mosaic Wellness is we build full stack health and wellness platforms for helping consumers with elective health problems. And what I mean by elective health is healthcare problems which are elective in nature, where you as a consumer may choose to solve for them versus maybe say that, okay, this is something I want to live with. So they're not life-threatening or debilitating healthcare problems, but are reasonably plenty and common across people across India. That's what we have been building for the last 3.5 years. We run 3 platforms: Man Matters, which caters to men's health and wellness; Be Bodywise, which caters to women; and Enjoys for children's health. So that's broadly what we've been up to.
Got it. And the thought behind Mosaic in terms of the name is extremely interesting. I mean, why Mosaic Wellness, right? And what's the thought behind it?
Sure. So there were 2 actually thinkings behind it. First is, I think as a company, we're kind of a mosaic of our 3 platforms, which is men's health, women's health, and kids' health. And though when we started, it was Man Matters that we started with 3.5 years ago, but it was very clear that we will be building more of these, and the mosaic coming together was one of the thoughts. The second more practical thought was we didn't get registration on most of the other names that we wanted. So ROC was just to go for the 5th and 6th option that we could kind of get to.
Right. No, but it's interesting because I remember, Dhyanesh, when we first met, maybe 3-4 years ago, when we started working together, right? At that point, I think you talked about the concept of house of brands. And I think that was the first time I had actually heard of that concept, right? Even before house of brands came in.
Bad word now though, right?
Sorry?
It's a bad word now.
No, it's not a bad word. Yeah, it's not a bad word. You can either do it well or you don't do it well, right? I don't think it's the concept of the theme is good. It's just how well or how badly person executes. But I remember, Dhyanesh, that's the first time I actually heard that whole concept of house of brands, right? I think that was very, very interesting. I think you guys did that. So I think just to put a little bit of context for the audience, right? I think let's just unpack the industry a little bit, right? So it'll be good to understand maybe from each of you how you sort of view the industry today in terms of the size, in terms of the various segments, and the sort of maybe some of the emerging trends and opportunities. That would be great if both of you could sort of shine a little bit of light so that it sets an overall context even for the audience to understand how this space is evolving.
Who goes first?
Go for it, Arjun.
Yeah, look, I think size of industry and like actual numbers in terms of growth rate, CAGR, etc., all of that I leave to consultants and newspapers and all of those things. I think what I will say is that if you take like an example of immunity, right? And I know Dhyanesh and I have discussed this before. This was an inexistent category in India for a very long time. So when I started, I remember in 2016 October, we launched a product called HerboFit. It was a goodness of Chyawanprash in capsule, and the indication on the product was immunity and energy. Honestly, I cared, but nobody else cared, right? And I think that in 2020, it became the most important product in our portfolio, and then eventually, obviously, moved back to normal. And I think what happened in 2020 and 21 was a deep focus or a deep change in India in relation to health, right? India has been and continues to be a curative market where lots more time, effort, energy, and consumer dollars are spent behind problem solution rather than preventive. But I think over the last 2 years, we're seeing some amount of change. We're seeing now consumers at least in certain pockets of our country, care about other general health indications. I think with the rise of personal care and the mainstreaming of personal care as well, preventive health is also going through somewhat of a serious growth phase now. I will also say though that our industry is very different from the personal care industry. In personal care, I've seen consumers not hesitate to try a new serum or a new cream or a new product that they have to apply on their body. But when it comes to health and wellness, there is a deep degree of research that's done on buying products. There is lots of referral-based behavior, whether it's through a doctor or a friend or a nutritionist or a dietitian, just someone you trust. And so for health and wellness, actually, I think that every part of the business journey takes a little bit more time and effort, because you don't instantaneously get crazy traction or crazy adoption for something which is health related. Usually you don't get instant results either. And so the grind and rhythm of building a business in health and wellness specifically is a little bit different from other spaces that I've seen. It needs investment, it needs effort, it needs nurturing, and it needs a lot of time spent with the customer.
Got it. Very interesting. And I think, would you say, I think COVID sort of was the sort of turning point where actually this came to the forefront, or was it even pre-COVID?
Look, I think that COVID in a lot of things, including this one, was an accelerant, right? It did make us exhibit some amount of leapfrog behavior. Like, for example, even in the financial services or payments industry, while UPI was there and Paytm had been in existence for a while, the moment that everything sort of increased in terms of adoption significantly was this period when you couldn't pay using cash. So I think not to that extent, but to some extent, I think the refocus towards health and wellness, or the refocus or the focus towards preventive healthcare got accelerated a little bit with COVID. I remember I went to a conference recently and more people were asking me about my workouts than my work, right? They were like following my runs on Instagram and asking me.
True.
There is definitely a increased conversation in this realm for sure.
Yeah, Janish?
Yeah, I think Arjun put it very well, which is this space is just very different from every other market out there, right? Like, if you think about it, so health and wellness put together in India, and since Arjun mentioned there's a job of consultant, I have been a consultant for 6 years, so it's a $300 billion market, right? But which is massive. That's like 24 lakh crores approximately, right? It's crazy. You would think that if it's a market of that size, there would be some massive brands out there that operate in this space. But guess what? There aren't. Like, if you think of some big brands in the health and wellness space, there aren't that many that come to your mind. And the reason is it's just a tough space built purely on trust. Like if you were to think, for any other FMCG category, think of 10 biscuit brands, chances are you'll come up with them very quickly.
Right.
Think 10 wellness brands, you might struggle beyond 2 or 3 names. Because this is just a tough space to build in. I think the other part is, what is interesting in the health and wellness space in India, at least historically, is the services and the products part of the business are very closely intertwined to each other. When I look at services, I'm looking at primary care, hospital care, tertiary care, and so on, which is actually 2/3 of the market. And then there is the other 1/3, which is products and ancillary services linked to it. It's very closely linked and delivered together, which again makes it a very complicated market for someone to try to enter and build a business in. So I think that's some of the reasons why we've not seen that many large opportunities come out here in terms of individual companies. It's so fragmented today. I don't have numbers, but I think if you leave out 1 or 2 large companies out there, how many services companies in the healthcare space must be more than 2,000 or 3,000 crore revenue? I don't think there will be more than 2 or 3 of them that I can think of today. Maybe Apollo, Max, and 1 or 2 others probably. If you look at the product side, again, how many would be there above 1,000 crore mark? I think probably 2 or 3 that I can think of again. So it's a very interestingly differently formulated market compared to every other FMCG space out there. So I think, yeah, it's a very interesting space for folks who are trying to explore getting in this space, must learn to think about it differently from every other consumer category out there. The only other part where actually I have a slightly different view from Arjun is, I think COVID actually gave a huge flip up to certain categories of health and wellness. And a lot of them moved up and then moved down very, very quickly. It was actually a very, very good reality check. And see, we launched our business exactly around the time COVID happened, April, May of 2020. So it was a very good learning for someone who was just getting in on how quickly something can move up and down as a trend. What remained maybe is a little bit of behavior change, right? The way people look at telemedicine, for example. I mean, 4 years back, no doctor worth his salt would want to do telemedicine. Today, every senior physician wants to be involved in telemedicine. They realize that, okay, this is the future. This is legit. This is this works. Same way for consumers. So I think behaviors moved, but a lot of the business numbers actually came up and down very fast, which to me was a very interesting reminder that some things which are built more solidly will probably remain to sustain over time, and a lot of these trends will move up and down.
No, you're right, because before we started our webinar, I was doing a little bit of research on this space, right? I mean, I was looking for top health and wellness companies in India. I was actually not able to find anything, right? Because if you do top and wellness, top biscuit companies or top FMCG companies, you get this list, right? But here, literally, there was nothing that was popping up, right? So I think, in a sense, that it's great, because I think then there is clearly an opportunity for someone to really come in and make a market. But again, I think fundamentally, like you're right, it's the product market fit is important, right? You need to really figure out what is that right intersection that will give you that right to sort of become a serious sort of operator in that space, right? So, well, we talk now a little bit about, sort of these respective brands, like your DRV and your sort of, Mosaic Wellness. What have been, some of the key challenges really sort of in terms of scaling these businesses, right? In terms of, and growing and scaling the businesses, the growing pains that you've had. Would love to sort of talk a little bit about that, Arjun, you're on mute.
Should I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so look, I think in terms of getting started is a big challenge, right? Because usually in health and wellness, you're entering an industry where consumers are used to consuming a certain kind of product. They have been consuming certain brands for a long period of time. There are a lot of spaces that you enter, you're up against large competition. And then in relation or in front of this large competition with limited resources, limited number of products, probably no offline presence when you start, you have to start building trust in the mind of the consumer to switch from what they're using or to try your product, right? And so I think the first big challenge I would say is trust building from a customer lens. Before this, there is a challenge that we did not face as a company, but I guess a lot of companies will face it. We didn't face it because of a specific reason. I inherited a large IPO formulations. Actually coming up with a product is not so easy. It's not like just going to a contract manufacturer saying, hey, I want this, just get this done for me. It's so simple, etc. All of that, right? So the first challenge, I guess, would be coming up with a unique product that is researched, that is stable, that actually has an impact, effect, etc. is something consumers are sort of happy with in terms of product formulation. So that's the first one. The second one is trust building. And then the third one, actually, and I think that Mosaic has done a fantastic job of this. We were not able to do this as well, is marketing. Because, like, you think about it, I'm selling a bottle of capsules, right? Like, customers are not, it's not a t-shirt, or it's not a shampoo or a cream or a hair dye or something like that, which they want to flaunt, right? Like, not coming and saying, like, here's me with my bottle of immunity supplements, like posting on Instagram and stuff. So I think even from a marketing perspective, you have to be very creative to be able to keep customer mindshare, and then you have to also be very careful from a marketing standpoint as well, because as a health and wellness brand, you can't say anything. There are lots of laws, lots of restrictions, lots of words you can and can't use. Everyone who's been in health and wellness knows that your ads do get flagged a lot of times. Your accounts face flags, etc. All of that. So I think challenges wise, I would say first is product, then second would be trust building, and then third would be marketing, staying relevant and sort of marketing in the realm of what you're allowed to do.
Got it. So I think we'll come back to how we can address some of these, but maybe Dhyanesh, from your point of view, you can add on in terms of your own experience in terms of the challenges you've seen.
So I actually go a +1 on the
Right.
3 that were mentioned by Arjun. They're definitely top of mind for us also, and there's definitely things we kind of went through. In fact, on the first one on product, like as Arjun mentioned, you inherited a great set of formulations, right, from your family. In our case, we took over a year to get the first set of products going, and so that and this is again because it's health and wellness, it just takes time to get it right. You can't take any chances. I would say the only fourth one here which makes health and wellness different from others is unlike other categories which are linked to not linked to health, right? It might be like, let's say, fashion. These are all what I would call very happy categories.
Right.
So you're not dealing with consumer anxiety in a significant way.
Right.
So maybe anxiety is limited to, okay, I want my order quickly because I want to wear
Right.
the school shirt out to this party. But beyond that, it's not deep-rooted anxiety. On the other hand, when you're dealing with health and wellness, there is clearly a certain amount of anxiety, if not all, some of your consumers are going through. That has huge implications in how you build your service delivery. It has huge implications in how you recommend the right solution to the right consumer. It has huge implications on how you educate the consumer on what he or she needs to do with regards to the products, with regards to lifestyle, with regards to various elements of his or her life. It has deep implications on the margin of error that you have. And I'm not talking about margin of error in terms of the healthcare solution, but even as simple as if the consumer wants the product in 2 days, you have to make sure, because it's part of a healthcare regime. It's not something which is superficial to that consumer. Your products are far more sensitive. So there might be, for example, temperature implications. I mean, a t-shirt shipped at 50 degrees is not gonna go any bad versus a healthcare product which might need to be orally consumed can have a very different outcome if it goes through a bad temperature patch, for that matter. So I think there are these, like I would split the challenges. There are some challenges which are inherent to starting any business that caters to the consumers in the digital space. Right. And then there are these few more which are so specific to health and wellness, right? As Arjun mentioned, trust is a huge one. The bar on getting products right. And then just the ability to tune your service delivery to a customer who's quite anxious is key.
So in terms of sort of the trust, right, what have been some of the strategies that have worked, right? Because like I said, nobody's going to buy a product and ingest it unless they trust it, right? So what have been some of the things that you may have tried which have worked and some things that may not have worked, right? So
yeah, I'll maybe start. So I think from a trust perspective, first establishing the basic efficacy or research behind your product is really important. And so talking about the approvals that your product has, the safety tests that your product undergoes, those are very important. And the manufacturing process, if you can, that is like, for example, ISO 9001, 2015 certification, GMP certification, FDA approval, all of these things that you may have for your various products in terms of certification, that could help. That's number one. 2 is establishing, for us in Ayurveda specifically, the legacy. So while the business was new, the legacy of Ayurveda was 150 years old. And so establishing the legacy really helped us. And then at a slightly later stage, when you have truly customers who have gained benefit from the products, then using customer testimonials, reviews, and ratings. These 3 things actually helped us establish trust in the market.
And maybe something that didn't work, any specific thing where you maybe thought, sort of made sort of common sense, I should do this, but it wasn't sort of really paying any dividends?
Yeah. I would say every time you made the conversation a little bit complex,
right?
In terms of like, let's say, for example, you talk deeply about the quality of extracts. I use better quality ashwagandha. I use better quality turmeric. Sometimes these things, until you do lots of customer education, it doesn't really have as much of an impact.
Got it. But so does that mean that sort of from an audience point of view or from a consumer point of view, the benefits are only sort of more important, not the how, it's the what?
No, it's more about you gotta understand or remove yourself from the brand owner and just think about what does the customer care about. And sometimes your assumptions may not be what the customer cares.
Right. Ganesh?
Yeah, so if I put it in a very slangish way, I think the most important thing to get the customer's trust is don't wing it. I think there is a big tendency in some digital businesses कि यार ये डाल देते हैं, ये बेच देंगे, we'll figure out a hack around it. I think in health and wellness you can't do that. You just have to do the right thing, take a little bit extra time, and have patience. And it's obviously very easy to say, it's very hard to do, because time is money, and patience is easy to talk about but very difficult to actually demonstrate. But as I look around at businesses that have done well, I think they've just been patient through the early stage to build trust. It's very hard to fast track trust beyond a point. Of course, there are things you can do, but the bare basic, I feel I see a lot of people just trying to wing it, various other means, and I think that's a recipe for disaster. That's one. Second is, I think this is maybe true for all businesses, not specific to health and wellness, but a little more in health and wellness. I think you really have to believe in the customer and build that customer obsession around that consumer.
Right.
When you build that culture in the company, when everyone thinks about life that way in the company, you automatically do the right things to build trust. You automatically discourage a culture of winging it. And that's the difference, I think, between a healthcare business and a pure consumer business. So I think that mindset, I know this might sound, as I'm hearing myself, I think this sounds very flaky, but I genuinely think this is the difference that one must be very mindful of if you're building in this space.
No, this is very foundational, Ganesh. I think you're right? Because if you are trying to sell, a health product to somebody, right? Unless you fundamentally believe in it yourself, right? And not just in your words, but in your own actions and how you think about your entire product development cycle, introduction to market, adoption, feedback. Unless you sort of deeply care about that, it's not going to manifest itself in your product, right? And I think, and therefore the patience thing comes in, right? So you've got to do the right thing. You've got to have the right set of markers you're tracking, and eventually it'll sort of, the wheels will start turning and things will start moving, right? So patience is very critical. And this is where I think if businesses where there is VC funding, there's always that sort of push and pull, right? In terms of doing something, the winging it versus actually sort of doing the right thing. And and you guys have, Arjun has been an entrepreneur and then an investor, and you were an investor and now an entrepreneur, right? So it's that balance is very, very, very critical. So I absolutely agree with you, right? So now let's sort of go a little bit further, right? Let's move a little bit more into sort of the downstream, the manufacturing and the supply chain side of things, right? So in terms of that, how is the overall sort of setup in India for manufacturing of these products? How does that landscape look? And then we can talk about the supply chain side as well.
Yeah, I think from a manufacturing perspective, I would say that actually in general in health and wellness, there is lots of export. And so if you look deep enough, there are lots of high quality manufacturing facilities. Maybe a lot of them are not manufacturing for Indian brands specifically, but if you look deep enough, there has been a history and a legacy of quality. I think if I were to speak about my space specifically, actually, there are lots more manufacturers than brands. Lots of people are contract manufacturers are running really, really small brands. And so we saw a gap between the small brands and the very, very large brands in terms of there being limited number of medium brands. And that's the opportunity that we leveraged off of. But if I think about manufacturing, right, and choosing a manufacturing partner, and we had the good fortune of working with Ganesh in the early days. They were thinking of launching Ayurvedic products as well. I think as a philosophy, we did partner with certain companies and work with them on a B2B lens as well. I think our philosophy was that as a manufacturer and as a manufacturing partner, and I think what I've seen startups benefit when they do work with similar people is behave like a partner, not like someone trying to just sell something and get away from it. Understand the specific needs, mold your requirements basis those needs, and be flexible and understanding. Like if, for example, someone came to me and said, "Hey, the sale event is coming up. I've given you an order late, but I just need it in 3 weeks instead of 4 weeks." Being a business owner and a brand owner, we understood that. We're looking for manufacturing partners as well, other than the quality, the approvals, the licenses. From a more qualitative lens, I think looking for a true partner is something I would recommend.
Got it. And so Danish, in terms of sort of the standards available in terms of, because again, obviously we're dealing with health, right? So in terms of the overall sort of the quality of manufacturing in the country, how would you want to sort of, can you shine a little bit of light on that?
Yeah, I think it's a crazy spread. Because as Arjun mentioned, we have some of the best US FDA approved facilities in India. We're one of the largest suppliers to the Western markets, to the whole world actually, for that matter. Be it Western markets, be it Africa, be it Europe, be it parts of Asia. There's some really high quality facilities. We also unfortunately have some really bad quality facilities out there. So it's this whole mix. And again, as someone who is owning the brand, I think you have the full menu available to you. The part one should be very careful about is in the early days when you are not very large. You'll have to be very selective on how and who you choose to work with. Because there's a very high chance with smaller volumes in your early days, you'd end up working with someone who is not really, who is, if I may call it, a machine in a shed, dishing out capsules, right? On the other hand, you'll have other folks who are small but very conscious about quality.
Right.
I mean, I remember Arjun used to be so personally involved in making sure everything is top notch. But not everyone would be that way. So I think there is a huge amount of diligence one needs to do in the early days to make sure you're getting the right quality. It goes back to the trust equation we spoke about, right? You get a couple of bad batches out there. It's not just about the business that you might lose because of those. It's about the reputation and the trust factor that you deplete, which is going to go a very long way from there onwards. So thankfully, we have some great options available because of the depth of the export ecosystem. So one has to be mindful of choosing it right.
And so two more things in terms of sort of the depth of SKUs, right? Like in fashion, you've got to have a very, very wide range of SKUs to be able to be relevant, right? So in this category, how does the SKU depth sort of play a role in terms of how well the company will do and how well it sort of can get traction with its customers?
Yeah, it's definitely very different from fashion. You can't have so many SKUs. Like 80, 100 SKUs is lots of SKUs.
Right.
And you don't need so many SKUs because honestly, other than size, there are no variations, not so many flavors in most products, etc. All of that. So I think from an inventory management perspective, and even the expiry on the products is long. Right? It's 1 to 5 years depending on the products you're making. So it's a different kind of inventory, that inventory holding and breadth of inventory holding that you will have. And so your job is actually to make the fewer SKUs heroes.
Got it.
You think like you don't have like companies with 500,000 SKUs at the early stage at least.
But can you still build a large health and wellness business with a limited set of SKUs?
See, actually, Ajay, if you're looking for a cough syrup, you're looking for a cough syrup. Right? You don't need 10 versions of the cough syrup. And you're looking for a capsule for immunity or a hair oil, and you can do 1, 2, 3 versions of it, but that's about it. You can't do 15, 20 versions of it. So I think from that perspective, there are only so many indications and so only so many types of products you can create. You will be doing this service if you make like 50 cough syrups. Just will confuse the customer honestly on which one to buy.
Ganesh, your view on this?
Yeah, I think like just maybe extending on what Arjun said, I think number of SKUs is inversely proportional to the extent of PMF that you have. So if you have good product market fit, and how would you get good product market fit? You selected your products well, you gotten good quality products out, and you marketed them reasonably well. If you have good product market fit, you should be able to do a good business, a sizable business with a limited number of SKUs. which is, I think, the way to go. Further in the digital, so the digital business is not so much a sales business, right? Which is like, if you were a typical offline guy, you'll have n number of SKUs, you're just going to push them down offline supply chain, and it'll just get picked up and off, on and off as is. This is one where you're going to take a painstaking amount of effort to build each product and category out in a certain way. So while sometimes it is very tempting कि चलो ये भी launch कर देते हैं, वो भी कर लेते हैं, and so on and so forth, right? Because theoretically you could always get that incremental bit of business from each of those places. I think it's very hard to do in practice. Again, you want to make sure you build a business which is profitable, right? Being a large number of products which are doing tiny amount of revenue, and there is a huge amount of bandwidth and effort that goes into that. There is inventory cost that is going to get plugged onto that also on top. I don't think it adds up. So I would actually focus on getting the choice right, getting great products, and have business with limited SKUs versus going wide.
So Arjun, the last time we had met up, there was a point that you had brought up, which you were quite excited about, was the whole subscription play, right? In terms of this business. So, I think from an India point of view, I think we've not seen a lot of successful subscription plays yet, right? So we'd love to get your views on this, because this is a category that perfectly lends itself to a subscription play.
See, I think that there was a challenge with subscription from a regulation standpoint, right? With the direct debit issue. And I think obviously there has been work done on it now. UPI AutoPay is live. It's being used by lots of different kinds of businesses. So I think this category lends itself to subscription if you find product market fit. And it is a category, especially in the preventive space, where you can have products for a long period of time. So with the existing payment instruments now that we made available to brands, you could actually play with the UPI AutoPay or the ability to do direct debit through NACH now, which wasn't existent in my time. So what we used to have to do was a manual subscription where you'd have to like nudge the customer every single time. Sometimes they would, sometimes they won't. But now
is there a propensity? Because the challenge here in India is people don't, people try products once and then stop, right? So that itself is also a bit of a challenge, right? To get people to commit.
Actually, I'll tell you one nuance about the Indian customer, and I don't know what Dhyanesh is saying, but at least from my experience, the customer may know they have to buy for 9 months or they have to consume for 9 months for the efficacy to happen, and you can communicate it as much. But usually, and I see my behavior also, even though I consider myself sort of top 1 to 3% of India in terms of consumption pattern and income, that I also don't buy for 9 months if I need it for 9 months. I'll buy only for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months at max, right? And so there is that inherent need to keep nudging for repeat, as opposed to the customer like in the US, right? Like Sam's Club and stuff like that. They are like customers who like to buy in wholesale in bulk and keep stock. That's not behavior we see in India. That's the reason that we are the shampoo sachet country, right? Because people know that people know that the whole bottle will be cheaper than each individual sachet, but they won't want to put the working capital in for the sort of the whole bottle instead. And that's why price points remain where they do. And I think with that nuance, then subscription or ability or need to nudge for repeats becomes really important.
We are a JIT country, right? We want everything just in time, right? So amazing. So I think let's move to the supply chain and ops side of things, right? So I think in this business, like I said, it's a couple of different challenges, right? One is obviously, like we talked a little bit about the temperature efficacy, right? Because you've got different types of products which need to be stored and managed at different temperatures. You've got issues around inventory planning. How do you store? What do you store where? Right? So maybe Dhyanesh, we'll start with you, right? In terms of, let's talk about first the inventory planning and distribution, right? Having the right product at the right place at the right time. So how are you thinking about these things? And can you share some stories about how you sort of things that you guys have done here?
Sure. So obviously the Uber objective is, how do I get the products quickly and reliably to the consumer?
Right.
And while doing that, obviously managing economics in a reasonable way. So I'm not burning through the roof to get there. when we started as a business 3.5 years ago, we started with one tiny, literally 250 square foot warehouse next to our office
Right.
to keep things going. Very quickly realized that if we want to be effective player in the space, if we want to compete with the likes of the big marketplaces, we just have to offer the experience that consumers are used to getting from them. I think the first step for us was to figure out how we can be closer to the consumer. So we moved from having a single warehouse then to now having about 6 different locations across the country. The objective was again to just be closer to the consumer, so we can get our goods across much sooner. We very quickly then moved to having separate warehouses for temperature controlled and non-temperature controlled setups. Again, we realized that if we want to make sure that when the product reaches the consumer, it is in the best of shapes, it will last out even beyond the stated expiry date. Consumer tears open the bottle and picks up a product, it seems as fresh as just off the manufacturing line. These kind of investments become absolutely essential. Building that took us some time. We realized that most of the cold storage facilities that we could find were like doing some combination of sabzi and ice cream. So having something to deal with our type of products also took us time to figure out where we can do that. So that was something which took us some time. Third is even just logistics, right? Getting products delivered. Unfortunately, I don't think India has that. India has a very deep coverage in terms of logistics. I think it's amazing that you can get something delivered from point A to point B, where A and B can be absolutely any place in the country quite efficiently in India. But the consistency of that network is actually still a pain, quite frankly. I don't think SLAs are at a level where they should be. I don't think error resolution is at a level where it should be. So the implication it puts on you is, again, going back to what I said at the start, this is a high anxiety customer. And this high anxiety customer does not care who messed up. It could be your warehousing partner, it could be a logistics partner, it could be an error by a manufacturer, it could be an error by you. As far as the consumer is concerned, he's bought from you. Right. So I think it creates a massive responsibility on you to figure out a system by which you can pull these together and deliver a reasonably high SLA outcome to the end consumer, which we found is not easy to do. Given the inconsistencies that keep happening in the system, especially on the last mile. So that's been a challenge which we've invested a lot of time and energy in trying to get better and better at.
No, I agree. I think in terms of, there are two parts, right? One is the last mile part and the other is the fulfillment and warehousing part, right? So I think as far as the warehousing and fulfillment goes, considering again that you've sort of gone through all the compliances on the manufacturing side, right? You need to continue to maintain that consistency even on the storage of the product, right? So like even we at Emiza have sort of take a lot of care around these things, because we deal with almost 150, 160 customers, including, Mosaic, Dr. Vaidya. So here, having the right type of infrastructure, having all the compliances in place at the warehouse, ensuring that there is no cross-contamination, because you deal with multiple categories and you have 3PLs who will deal with multiple categories, right? To ensure that products that don't fit together shouldn't be stored together. So those are critical things that one needs to look at, right? And especially for products which are temperature sensitive, having that kind of infrastructure within a shared facility, right? That is also very important, because there'll always be some portion of the product that needs to be maintained at 18 degrees and stuff like that, right? So product handling is critical, because you may get everything right, but after you manufacture and if you don't look at the downstream activities well, finally when the customer gets that product, the trust gets broken, right? So completely agree with that. And so Arjun, in terms of your own sort of experience at DRV, in terms of how you all, because I think you all were for the longest time fulfilling out of one single location, right? Mumbai, before you all started with Emiza. So, what is your view in terms of the right way to distribute product and to store product across the country, right?
We were fulfilling from one location because distributed warehousing wasn't there until 2020.
Right.
It came, it was COVID, so we were scared to start using it because we couldn't travel. I think distributed warehousing is crucial today because, look, customers are not just used to Amazon Prime now. Customers are used to Zepto, Instamart and Blinkit. And so the TAT that a customer expects is much lower. What delights a customer is not next day delivery, it's now how many hours in same day delivery you get the product to the customer, right? And so I think given all of this, it's really important to do as much as you can to reduce the amount of time from purchase of order till product reaching consumer. Because the longer it takes, the higher the chance of the RTO, the higher the chance of dissonance, and so the higher the chance of problems for you as a business.
So I think this is an important point you brought up about with Zepto and stuff like that, right? So I think you've got the whole concept of sort of instant gratification, right? Same day delivery, not even same day, it's like within an hour, within 10 minutes. So what is your view in this category? What is actually necessary? What, and is it really necessary to go same day? Can you go?
It's like if you are taking more than 2 days to reach a consumer in a metro, you have a problem.
Right.
Same day, 2 hours, etc. Depends on like how urgent the product is. Look, if it's a pharma delivery, then anyways the chemist shop is delivering in 30 minutes to 2 hours.
Right.
But if it's a general use supplement, then you should try to get it next day, if not 2 days. Anything above 2 days is a problem for sure.
See, whatever is available in the chemist are typically your sort of your older brands, sort of your more legacy brands.
Vyanish is available in the chemist as well now.
Which one?
Vyanish's brand is available in a lot of chemist stores as well.
But then, but that's for Mosaic true. But I'm saying for a lot of challenger brands who are coming into this space now into health and wellness, who may not have that luxury of actually
I would say 2 days or less. 2 days or less in metros.
But does this category lend itself to like quick commerce?
Certain parts of the category do.
Yeah.
For example, there is a shampoo, anti-hair fall shampoo of Man Matters that I use that easily work on quick commerce. Right? But then there is a product in Dr. Reddy's, let's say for example, that's a supplement for immunity. I may not want that in like 15 minutes. I mean, it'll be okay to wait for a day for getting that product. So it depends on the urgency as well. Like for example, my first product I ever launched was a hangover product. 2016, October. Right. Had I had quick commerce, that product would have done so much better. I just didn't have access to quick commerce.
Right.
Today, that product will do fantastically if delivered in 15 minutes. I used to take 5 days to deliver it.
Right.
Finish the night out, you have got the hangover, then you are planning the next weekend's night out, and then the product reaches you.
Interesting. So Dhyanesh, I think you guys have done a phenomenal job in terms of getting your product across now the country, right? So you've run a few same day programs and stuff like that. What's your view in terms, because it's a significant investment, right? If you want to deliver within the same day, the cost of delivery goes up significantly. Customers may or may not be willing to pay, right? How are you thinking about this?
I think we think about it in two different lenses. One is when I just I think we should think about the customer's purchase journey.
Right.
So there are some products where the purchase journey is extremely quick and instantaneous. In those kind of cases, time can play a pivotal role. We don't have too many of those instances. I think most of our categories tend to be very thought through. They tend to be driven not just by a product purchase, but even maybe consultations with experts involved. So the decision is arrived at over a period of time. In those kind of cases, we feel more than, of course, it would be great. Theoretically, you have the best of everything. So you have all of this and you have instant delivery. Can't argue with that being great, but when you kind of do the trade-off, you would think that it's probably less important than getting the journey right for those kind of customers. Then there are some other cases where the reverse might hold true. But I think for most categories that we see in health and wellness, probably as Arjun mentioned, for the one-off category like the anti-hangover, just works beautifully. But a lot of others, it might be a lot more thought through than not. It also comes down to what is the customer really willing to part with here? Because see, at the end of the day, you have to assume that you're trying to run a business that has reasonable economics. I don't think same-day deliveries are something which is going to happen at a cheap cost. It's going to increase your inventory cost. It's going to increase your logistics costs significantly, for that matter. And even then, I don't think we are in a position today to do it in more than maybe 10 cities in the country. Whereas the reality is We are covered across lakhs of towns.
Right.
So what is the practical doability of this is unclear at this point of time. The way we're going about this is we're quite anal about trying to get to the consumer quickly. We're spreading our geographic footprint. We think that within the cities that we are in now, there are good logistics networks available to get to the consumer within a day, which is a reasonable time period per se. We, contrary to what you said, we've not done very deep experiments yet on the same day. I think one of the reasons is we've not been able to find a network which can do same day very efficiently in the country yet. Able to do see networks do next day quite efficiently. And the last thing we've seen on this is, we keep discussing how quickly can we reach the consumer, and we do it in almost every forum, in every discussion I'm a part of. Very rarely have I seen discussions around, okay, you're claiming X, in what percentage of cases do you actually get to in X days? And the X need not be same day. It might even be 2 days for that matter. And I think that's, again, a bigger part of the problem in health and wellness, because you're again building for trust.
Correct.
So आप बोल रहे हो 2 दिन में पहुंचाओगे and you're reaching in 4 days, then I mean that is a core part of the trust element, right? You're gonna think, hey, this is a company which barely knows what it's doing. So we've been pushing a lot of our partners, not just on time, but hey, let's make sure we give SLAs that we can meet.
Got it. So I think this is being great. I think what we can do now is we're down to the last few minutes. So if the audience has any questions, we'd be happy to take that, and then we can maybe just end with some closing thoughts from Dhyanesh and Arjun. We've got over 50 participants already on the call. So anyone who wants to put across a question, you are free to.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah, just introduce yourself first, please.
Hi, this is Akhil Gupta. I have actually spoken to Arjun once, a couple of times in the past as well. I run a food brand which is into health, but we are also looking to parallelly start into the wellness space. And so, Arjun, just a question for you. How do you see the typical lifetime value, considering that this is such a high repeat category, compared to, let's say, a food brand, where converting consumer initially might be difficult, so the CAC could be much higher. But what is your take on LTVs?
I got the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, what is your take on LTVs in the food business?
No, in the wellness space, like, can you expect like a longer term lifetime, or like a higher lifetime value in this space?
Yeah, look, in health and wellness, if your product delivers, you should have a high lifetime value, unless it's a symptomatic relief product, right? So let's say, for example, my cough syrup works and my cough goes away, then I won't buy it again until I have a cough the next time, or I'll use the same bottle again. But if I'm talking about, let's say, acidity, or I'm talking about allergies, these are products I used to use from Dr. Vaidya's, my LTV was like, for my personal consumption, until they stopped selling the product, like 5.5 years, every month I bought the product, because it just made me feel so much better, right? So if you have a product that delivers and that has a long-term use case for chronic ailments like diabetes, arthritis, asthma, intestinal ailments, kidney ailments, digestive ailments, your LTV could be infinite for a very long period of time. And Dhyanesh would have seen the same for a lot of his users.
Right. Thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm Arnab Guha from Impeccable Innovations, Bangalore. So my question to the panelist is, what is the reason for such like the quick commerce, why it is gaining such a momentum? However, just 20 years ago, our mom and dad used to do grocery buying after doing a proper planning, like what to be done for 15 days. Why Indians are now going for quick commerce delivery, and how, and is there any way that we can do away with quick commerce mentality?
I think
Why do you want to go away from it?
Yeah, why are you considering it an evil thing? if I may ask?
No, my thought process is if we do a proper planning, then we can save a lot of things in terms of sustainability. Let's say today, one rasgulla is coming to my home with just a one packet. A person is burning a petrol, and so instead of that impulse purchase or impulse, everything is now becoming an impulse. So is there a way we can do a reverse trend, or do you see a reverse trend happening?
I think it's a fair point that it's inefficient is what you are pointing out. That if you ordered one rasgulla, I remember my son who's 6 years old tells me, I want a dairy milk, let's order it from Zepto. It was one of the first words he learned actually when he started speaking. This is like, think of food delivery, right? When you started with Swiggy and Zomato maybe several years ago, you never paid for delivery. You could order whatever little you wanted, and you got at 50% discount on top of that. Today it's very different, right? Today you do end up paying for delivery. Today you do end up not getting discounts below a certain order value, and so on. I think the same trend you will see in quick commerce, right? It's a matter of time before economics force some decisions onto this. You're seeing quick commerce in the first 1 to 2 years of its evolution today. At this point, the value proposition is getting established. You will see this possibly get fine-tuned significantly, and the quick commerce you'll be using 5 years from today might be quite different from what you have as of today.
And I can pretty safely say that if our parents had the access to quick commerce 20 years ago with the phones and all of these things, I'm sure we would have been doing it back then as well, right? So I think it's just a matter of we are moving up the convenience value chain, right? And I think maybe 5 years from now there'll be something altogether different, right? So I think it's just a matter of how the industry is evolving, how technology is evolving, how access is improving, right? So I don't think it's going to go away, Arnab. I think it's here to stay, but it'll definitely you'll see version 2.0, 3.0, and each one will get better and more efficient, because finally those businesses also have to stay alive, right? So they have no choice but to evolve and try to sort of make it more sustainable, right? So great. We're down to the end here, and we're out of time. So I think thank you so much, Arjun. Thank you so much, Dhyanesh. Really appreciate you guys giving the time and sharing your wisdom with the audience and us, and look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajay, for organizing this amazing topic, and
pleasure.
Look forward to being back soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everybody. Thank you.
Fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.